Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 16 masterpieces for chamber orchestra I couldn't live without. First of all, I think we need to talk about what is a chamber orchestra. It's really sort of a good question, isn't it? Because it's a very fluid kind of thing. Essentially, it's anything larger than a defined chamber ensemble. It kind of ends at like a nonette or a dectet or something like that. About 9 or 10 mixed players, strings and winds and whatnot. Anything bigger than that. But it could be all strings. It could be all something. But it's a mixture of strings and winds and brass and maybe even a little percussion. But not more than double winds, probably. Sort of like a small classical-sized orchestra. We could have most of the Haydn and Mozart symphonies in the chamber orchestra category. We really, really could. But we don't think of them as chamber orchestra works. For some reason, we think of them as somewhat bigger than that, even though they're really not, or at least most of them aren't. So it's a very, very impressionistic concept, let's put it that way. And you can use it as you will, as long as it's not a 60-piece or 70-piece orchestra. When Haydn first did his London symphonies, he had like about a 45-piece orchestra. That today would be considered a chamber orchestra, although we don't, like I said, lump them in that category. So I won't. But all this other stuff, well, major orchestras do them, but they do them with reduced forces. Anyway, these are all absolutely fabulous pieces that I cannot live without. And it does offer a good way to include a bunch of Baroque pieces, because Baroque pieces, yes, they do qualify as chamber ensemble works, because the modern symphony orchestra hadn't been invented yet. And, you just didn't get the standard layout of instruments that you do in the general symphony orchestra of today. So, yeah, I would throw all kinds of Baroque stuff into the chamber orchestra category if that's what you want to do. You can duplicate composers if you want. You can steal things from my list. Remember, it's your list. I keep getting comments that say things like, I'd agree with your list, but I would change this for that or something like that. No. No one cares if you agree or not. That's not what we're doing. I don't want you to agree or disagree. I want you to give me your own list. Just do it. Just do the list instead of commenting on other people's lists. I mean, let's see if we're getting towards the end of this series, if we can finally get it right in terms of people's response to these things. Make a list. Come on, you can do it. So many people have. And they're wonderful. There's so much terrific music that you're sharing with other readers. That's the point. It's not about your opinion about whose list is right or wrong. I mean, that is just so silly. Make your own list. Okay, so here we go. Number 1. Stravinsky, Pulcinella, either live or the suite. It doesn't make any difference. Oh, this is so wonderful. It's Stravinsky's ballet after what he thought was Pergolesi, but which was mostly Domenico Gallo. It's beyond delightful. The arrangements are just fabulous and spiky and perky and fresh and delicious. And if you get it, the complete ballet, you get the songs that go with it, which are also charming. And oh gosh, it's a masterpiece. It's just amazing. Schreker, his chamber symphony. It's for like 23 solo instruments or something like that. I don't know. It's a whole strange conglomeration of things. You've got like harmoniums and celestas and harps and percussion, and sometimes you may even have a trombone or two in a chamber orchestra. Pulcinella has a trombone, actually. It has a trumpet, it has a trombone, it has a horn, so you can slip some of the larger artillery into a chamber orchestra, as long as it's not too much of it and it doesn't dominate. But the Schreker Chamber Symphony is just one of those luscious, decadent, late romantic pieces of, it's a truffle. It's a musical truffle. You can't have too much of it. It'll make you sick. But take it on its own. It's just glorious music. Handel's 12 Concerti Grossi Opus 6. Well, these are just for string orchestra, but they're for really multiple string orchestra because they're concerti grossi. They're for a little group of soloists and then the larger ensemble. So you have to have enough people to create the necessary contrast. I mean, Handel called them grand concertos. And they are. They are on the largest possible scale with lots of movements and lots of contrast. And there are lots of them. And they're long. And there's tons of them. And, oh, they're gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Full of succulent string textures. Respighi, the 3 Botticelli pictures. Oh, God, I adore this piece. You know, the pictures are in question are spring, primavera, and the Adoration of the Magi, I think, is the second one, and then Venus on a half shell. You know, the birth of Venus as she emerges from the waves. It's just the most wonderful, colorful use of a chamber orchestra. It is so true to the colors in Botticelli's paintings. Those beautiful, luminous colors. Oh my gosh, it's hard to imagine a more perfectly matched, union of music and visual imagery. I really wish that you had to look at the pictures while you listen to the music because it's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And the music is tuneful and charming and somewhat archaic. And oh wow. An incredible masterpiece. It really is. It's better than the Roman tone poems. It really is, in terms of its just perfection of technique and intent. And then, Shostakovich, Symphony No. 14. Well, here's going to the opposite direction. This is a group of 11 songs about death. It's not exactly a cheery piece. I was visiting with my extremely dear friend, Dr. Zerlenmeyer Eller, in Munich one day, and I actually had tickets to see this thing with like the Munich Chamber Orchestra or somebody like that. It was Christoph Poppen, I think, was conducting. Anyway, and it was Mother's Day, and I said to him, "Listen, you know it's Mother's Day. I'll take care of the kids," because he had 2 small children at the time. Why don't you take your wife for Mother's Day to the concert? I didn't tell him. The featured work was Shostakovich's 14th. Just the perfect work for Mother's Day, don't you think? Oh my gosh, it's dark. Oh, it's so dark, but also very, very beautiful. And it's scored for a very small chamber orchestra of strings and percussion. And really a masterful work, but you got to be in the mood. You really, really have to be in the mood. There's a ton of variety in it. I mean, it's not just all gloom and doom, but the variety is mostly of a dark sort. I also saw this piece the other time. I've talked about this before. I saw it is when it was conducted by none other than Krzysztof Penderecki himself. He did his own De Natura Sonoris No. 2, which was one of his early avant-garde pieces where you're like attacking a file cabinet with a hacksaw in the percussion section, and his viola concerto, which is as gray and dingy and droopy as you could possibly imagine. And then the second half was Shostakovich 14. The viola concerto actually made Shostakovich 14 sound chipper and bright and perky by comparison. The performances were very good. It was with the New York Philharmonic at Avery Fisher Hall. It was during a snowstorm, and by the end of the concert, me and my friend were about the only 2 people left. I mean, there may have been 5 or 6 others scattered about the hall watching this thing. It was really, really kind of an existentialist performance. Let's put it that way. You felt that you were in some kind of, Kafkaesque or, Orwellian nightmare by the time you were over. It was just fabulous. Okay, so Copland, Appalachian Spring, perking up now for sure in its original version. I just adore Appalachian Spring. The complete ballet is amazing. It's written for a small sort of chamber ensemble, which is incredibly well used and beautifully done. The big orchestra version is very nice too, but I think the chamber original has a spontaneity and liveliness to it that's kind of hard to beat. It's really tremendous. And there's a fabulous recording with the Columbia Chamber Ensemble or Orchestra, whatever they were called, under Copland himself. I mean, it's been done a couple times since then, but it's absolutely lovely. Bach's Brandenburg concertos. Yeah, we ought to toss them in somewhere, don't you think? Those are really sort of iconic chamber music works because each one is written for a differently constituted ensemble, and so you need to have quite an assortment of instruments. You need to have horns and oboes and violino piccolos and gamba things and recorders and flutes and stuff and a trumpet and there's all kinds of things in there, and so they're very, very rich in terms of their expressive qualities, but also in terms of their instrumental requirements, and so they are ideal chamber orchestra pieces. And you need one hell of a keyboard player for the fifth Brandenburg, where you've got that amazing cadenza. Oh my goodness, for solo harpsichord or piano or whatever you want to use with it. They're amazing. I don't need to tell anybody about those. Ravel, Le Tombeau de Couperin. Another one of those delicious, homage pieces. Homage to the French Baroque in this case. But in completely modern harmonic terms and exquisitely written for a small orchestra with, it's got, there's a trumpet in there because the final movement goes da 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 da. Well, the trumpet does that a lot. And then you've got, harp. There's a beautiful part for harp. It starts to get larger in these pieces, but the main forces are just, double winds. And that's about it, and strings. And the solos are really virtuosic. I mean, the opening oboe solo is one of the great test pieces in the orchestral repertoire. And most conductors play it too fast. They want the oboist to die. And today's oboists are so good that they can just blast through the thing. But, you shouldn't. It's supposed to have give it time to breathe, phrase it, love it, do something. Well, that's just my suggestion. Honegger, Symphony No. 4, Deliciæ Basilienses, The Delights of Basel. I'm sure there are many. I have no idea what Honegger's talking about because usually he's very creepy and kind of dark. But this symphony is not terribly dark. At one point, there are bells in the first movement. You've got this fabulous glockenspiel part. It's a keyboard glockenspiel part, actually. And you do have some amazing bell sounds in Basel. I wouldn't know. I've been there, but not long enough to hear lots of bells. And then there's like a march thing that's on a folky kind of tune. That the tune is something like Basel's a great old town or something like that. It's like Pittsburgh's a great old town. It's a wonderful work that nobody ever plays. It was written for Paul Zacher, who commissioned, along with Elizabeth Sprague Coolidge and Koussevitzky, most of the 20th century orchestral repertoire. And I do wish it was performed more often. It deserves attention. Of course, it ends quietly, which is the kiss of death, and it's written for a small, a chamber orchestra. Richard Strauss, Le Bourgeois Gentilhomme. Well, this is written for basically the same size orchestra as Ariadne auf Naxos, with which it was originally coupled. And it is without question a chamber orchestra in Straussian terms. It's another one of those 20-some-odd people type things. And oh, the suite is so much fun. I mean, it really is. It's full of really, really delicious and really hard to tell it's Strauss. I mean, play it for your friends if you think they know Richard Strauss and ask them who wrote the overture. It's witty and it's classicizing. It's actually earlier sounding than Mozart and Haydn. It's a faux Baroque confection of a piece. It really is. We've been talking about candy a lot in this. We've had truffles, and this is also a bonbon of some sort. This work, without question, and the final movement, the dinner, the supper with the various courses, imitating other people's music. Oh gosh, it's fun. Strauss was very interested in earlier music. He did that wonderful ballet, Verklugene Feste, or what faded, I don't know what the hell it translates into. But it's, based on Rameau keyboard works that he orchestrated and things like that. He was involved. He had that, and he Straussicized a lot of it. He gave it more notes, more counterpoint, a little bit more glamour than maybe the originals had. But by and large, you can tell that he delighted in writing music of this sort. And he was very, Strauss was very fluent. The notes just came popping out. So he was in good shape when he did the Bourgeois Gentilhomme. Zelenka, 5 Capriccios. This is, the Brandenburg concertos for weird people. These pieces are amazing with insanely difficult horn parts and oboe parts too. They're written for small orchestras, oboes, bassoons, horns, and strings. That's basically what you get. And they are full of typical Zelenkian characters, strange phrase lengths and really characterful tunes, that sort of, evoke his Czech origins, but sort of are just, well, they're unique to him. And fun to listen to. Oh my goodness, they're delightful. If you don't know these, and he wrote 5 of them because everyone else was writing 6. Nothing he did was normal. Everything was in prime numbers. But if you know, like the Brandenburgs and Handel, Concerti Grossi, and all these other Baroque things, you've got to hear these pieces. They are absolutely wonderful. Wonderful and full of fun. Dvorak, his Legends, one of the great 19th century works for chamber orchestra that nobody knows about. It's also a transcription, by the way. We were just talking about great transcriptions, like the Slavonic dances. It was a piano 4-hands piece, but he always intended to orchestrate it. There are 10 of them. There are 10 little tone poems. We don't know what they're about. He just called them Legends, but they are romantic to their core. I mean, just full of fabulous tunes, because Dvorak could write tunes like nobody's business, and wonderfully scored for a small orchestra of just a couple horns and there's also a harp in there somewhere actually, and I think a triangle at one point, and just tiny ensemble, double winds, and oh, so beautiful, unbelievably beautiful, just exquisite, and they don't get played, and you don't have to do all of them. I mean, you can do one as an overture to a concert. You can use as many as you like, and you really ought to, because they are just incredible pieces. Sibelius, Pelléas, and Mélisande, just one of the great incidental scores anybody ever did. And it's also written for a small orchestra. There's like one blast of loudness at the end, an intermezzo, a few movements in, but it's also a multi-movement piece. There's a little option in terms of how many movements might actually be in there, because there's the complete incidental music and then the suite. But there's a bass drum, there's a little percussion and stuff, but boy, oh boy, great tunes, incredible atmosphere. Wonderful atmosphere, by the sea. There's like this swishy sort of thing, and Mélisande at her spinning wheel is one of the creepiest pieces you've ever heard in your life. It's fantastically evocative and at the same time doom laden. It's laden with doom, and it's fantastic. Then let's see, Vivaldi's 4 Seasons. Yeah, why not? I love Vivaldi's 4 Seasons. I really do. I actually was going to toss in L'Estro Armonico. I think, that's another thing that could go in there very, very easily. His Opus 3 Concerti. Something by Vivaldi. We have to have things by Vivaldi, don't we? You've included those already in our concerto lists, but I wanted to stick it in somewhere. I mean, well, it's just one of the most iconic pieces of Baroque music, and it's, exquisitely written and fun to listen to, and I don't find it ever gets old. I really don't. Maybe we should do the whole of his Opus 8, the trial between invention and harmony, or whatever the thing is called. It's really just a wonderful opus. You also get the Storm at Sea concerto and some other things like that. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic for chamber orchestra. Hindemith's Kammermusik. Kammermusiken, I think is the plural, isn't it? Numbers 1 through 7. These are 7 strange concertos in his early acerbic, neoclassical, new objectivity kind of style. The first Kammermusik, is for the full ensemble. It's sort of a concerto grosso type thing. It has percussion and trumpet and a few other goodies squishing and squealing away. It's lots of fun. And then the others are all concertos. There's concertos for like viola d'amore and violin and piano and organ and all kinds of instruments. And they are really, really delightful works. They're not easy works. I mean, you have to sort of be in that mood for a somewhat dry, busy contrapuntal style. But within their Fach, they are little masterpieces, and really I enjoy them. I enjoy them pretty regularly, to be honest with you. I just find that they're refreshing. Some of these pieces from the early 20th century, these neoclassical pieces, so it's like Stravinsky's Pulcinella or the other neoclassical Stravinsky things like Dumbarton Oaks, or the things that are the obvious Baroque influenced works. They're very enjoyable. They're very enjoyable under the right circumstances. Let's put it that way. You just have to be in the mood. You can't always be in the panting and heaving, sweaty Rachmaninoff Mahler mode. At least I find I can't. Some people can. That's okay. You can do whatever you want to do. But there are times when, a cool, crisp, fresh, bracing, slap on the face, sort of cold bath, cold shower kind of thing is just the ticket. And these pieces are really great for that. They really are, because they're superbly well written. And last but not least, Martinu, Toccata e due Canzoni. Now, Martinu was really the king of the chamber orchestra, especially the chamber orchestra concerto type things in the 20th century. He wrote dozens of pieces for these ensembles. He wrote his concerto grosso. There's the Sinfonietta La Jolla. There's the Sinfonietta Giacosa. It's just quantities of these pieces, and they're delightful. They really are. There's not a bad one in the bunch. There's the concerto for string quartet. There's his Sinfonia Concertante, but the same ensemble as Haydn's. There's just endless streams of this wonderful music for smaller ensembles. And the Toccata e due Canzoni is really, really special, because the opening toccata, I think, is one of the most glorious things ever written for chamber orchestra. It just moves. It starts this chugga 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 chugga. It's a perpetual motion piece. And it has this wonderful main tune, da da da, ya da 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 da. Anyway, and that's glorious. And then there are two spooky movements that follow. Excuse me. Really remarkable pieces. So give it a shot, and you'll enjoy it, I'm sure. I think you'll really find it haunting, incredibly beautiful. Keep on listening. Let me see your list so I can listen to yours and you can listen to mine. That sounds like a good way to spend a Sunday. Thank you so much for joining me, friends. Take care.